United, Fulham, 1-0. Look at that. Expected goals, shots on goal. Oh, it must have been an absolute thriller.
The Bourfest, wasn't it?
Craven Cottage. Martinez proving to be the difference of the size. Why not? But there were questions about Marcus Rashford once again after the game. Here is Amorim.
It's always the same reason. So, what is that reason? The reason is the training. The way I see what a footballer should do in training, in life, and is every detail. So if things don't change, I will not change. It's the same situation for every player. If you do the maximum, if you do the right things, we can use every player. And you can see it today on the bench. We miss a little bit like pace to go, to change the game, to move some pieces, but I prefer like that. I will put Vital before I put a player that don't give the maximum every day. So I will not change in that department.
Vito, his goalkeeping coach, by the way. Looking at, I was reading Marca as I do every morning, fluent in Spanish, obviously, Nadem, through it all. And it's interesting in this Marcus Rashford linked to Barcelona, willing to take a pay cut, blah, 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 blah. If I'm any club, why would I have any interest in Rashford when he can't even be bothered to train properly for the club that he's with at the moment?
Well, I think in fairness, like the situation with Marcus at this stage, and I'm sure the guys maybe agree with this, like if the manager comes and says you need to train harder, well, as a player, you've got a decision. Do you train harder or do you try and make a point and say you're not going to? It seems like because it's been so drawn out, Rashford has decided this isn't for me. This is how I'm going to be, and there's nothing that you're going to do about it because Marcus probably wants to play. But Amorim has laid his stall out, and I like it. I like the way he's speaking because for Amorim as well, he's not just a manager. The way I see him, it's almost like the way a senior player should have been speaking to Rashford if they ever perceived him to not be doing enough on the training pitch before this point. But instead, it's a great lesson for Rashford, one that is long overdue. You know, if you want to play, you've got to earn the right to be there. Like, it's not just your ability. They'll give you the opportunity. At this club now, even though they're not doing as well as, say, they would have hoped to be able to do, like, you've got to earn your spot there. You have to have the same drive and desire as everybody else. And then maybe you can get a chance. And the fact that he's like almost cutting off his nose saying we don't have pace on the bench, but I'd rather have it that way because all those people there are deserving of it. I think it sets the tone, it builds a culture. And I think it's fair to say that for most of us here on this panel, we've been questioning Man United's culture for a very long time. I respect it from Amorim and for Rashford, him having to potentially go somewhere else. Well, he's going to have to start fresh. And if he goes somewhere new and he doesn't have that history, he's not the United Academy graduate, he's not the guy that scored, say, 30 goals 2 seasons ago. He will have to build from the ground up. So these clubs that are interested, maybe they know he's got a point to prove now, and maybe the price will be lower. So yeah, maybe he's an option, but then also Rashford has to get it right because if he doesn't, where does he go next?
Ruben Amorim has just cemented what we've been saying for a while. That this is a guy who had a magnificent season a couple of years ago, got his new contract and has mailed it in. Not just on the training field, but on the pitch. Not tracking back, not shutting down, not working hard. And by the sounds of this coach, and by the way, he's not just not training hard under Ruben Amorim. It's not just I don't like a Portuguese manager.
No, when Amorim arrived, he was put on Instagram. Great training session. Remember, first couple of days.
This will be for
well with the world.
This will be for every manager since he signed that contract, which is Erik ten Hag. So this is, and when a manager's so strong like this is just not a player who is 5% short in training. This is somebody who is visibly not bothered. And he's saying to him, I can't let the others see that I'm weak by allowing somebody to have this attitude and then put him on the bench or use him. And it's a shame because he's a talented player. He should be one of the first on the United team sheet. He should be one of the first in the England squad, maybe even in the starting 11. He should be all of those things. And I know I know he does nice things and he's got charitable donations, and I understand all that. But we're not talking about that business. We're talking about the business that pays him thousands and thousands and thousands a week. And it's a slight on him that he trains in the way he does, considering his profile within the game. Somebody may touch him, But football is it's a business where everybody talks, and Marcus Rashford's attitude will be crystal clear for any club or new manager that wants to come in and take him, whether it's on a loan or an incentivised based situation where his pay is based on appearances and goals and blah, blah, blah. But managers, coaches and clubs and the chief execs talk. And he's in a scenario now where, does somebody want another problem? Because a manager once said, if there's a problem in the dressing room, give it to somebody else. And Marcus Rashford currently is a problem for Ruben Amorim.
To your question, Dan, I think people are willing to take a chance with Marcus Rashford because you know how good he can be. Bear with me for a minute. And if the price is right, you take that gamble, and especially if it's on loan, and you can send him back at the end of the season if it doesn't work out. From a Marcus Rashford's perspective, it's become very difficult, if not impossible, to defend him any further. Now, we've all been there, and we've seen, I'm sure we all have, we've seen players have disagreements with managers, they don't like them, they don't
Nathan fought with them every day.
Well, and we've also seen whether this current group down tools when that relationship kind of sours. I've never seen anybody do it 2 managers in succession, in such quick succession. Amorim has been there, 12 weeks, if so much, and all of a sudden, okay, things aren't going great with Ten Hag, you're down tools there. New manager comes in, you've given a fresh start, and this early in, you're right back to where you were 12 weeks ago. That I have never seen from any pro at any level, let alone somebody playing and representing Manchester United. I think part of that issue is a broader cultural issue, as Nathan was talking about, around Manchester United. Now, I'll echo Roy Keane in saying, good teams, the managers hold them accountable. Great teams, the players hold each other accountable. There's nobody at Manchester United, and that probably speaks to a lot of their signings and the current ownership as to how Manchester United have devolved to this point where there is nobody in that dressing room who can have those hard conversations with a talented player like Marcus Rashford.
Mario, if you're trying to sell me Marcus Rashford, how do you go about it? How can you convince me as a club that, yes, he can recapture that form that Craig mentioned 2 years ago? Because since then, we have seen nothing.
We have to go to what he have prior to where he is in this situation. That's the only way they can sell him now. They can sell him in what he was like, what he can bring to the table. Because, him starting as a young boy, you understand, was he actually, I think it was in Van Gaal's time, where he, was excelling and doing things that we were like, wow. And then it got all the way through. And what the guys just highlighted, okay, against, with Ten Hag, he had moments and then it dropped off, it go hot, cold. And I think Amorim came in and he knew about this situation. I don't think he's informed by just seeing. He was just watching if he was getting the answers of what people have told him and what he has already heard about it. Because I don't think a coach comes into a dressing room and thinking like, oh, I'm going to pick up everything and try to figure it out. I think he already knew what was happening. And then he just tried to see if this was really true or can I get him to start again. But like the guy said, as a player, great player. He has everything that you need to have. He has a pace, he has a great strike, and it's not like a lot of, like people you see, the way they strike the ball, he can really hit it really hard. And he's got the skill. And what Craig highlighted something really important. He should definitely be one of the first guys on the list of Man United. And in that moment, him being on the first and playing well is what will get him in the English national team. But now, it looks like he's going further away from everything. Him being a star or him just going to a league that he might lack. We don't know if he's going to do well there, and we don't know what's going to happen. So that's why it's going to be a big problem, especially when your coach talks in public about you like this. I don't think there is any player that likes it. Even Amorim, when he was playing, he would not want his coach to talk about him like that.
How common is this, Nathan? How much have you seen this at clubs that you've been to, maybe not as high profile as Marcus Rashford?
I think it kind of depends, to be honest, because very rarely is somebody as talented and as high profile as Marcus Rashford at a club like Manchester United going through what's being said now, but then also a manager having enough sort of like power to be able to come out and say it, because I think for a few years, maybe some of the managers haven't been empowered, so anything that they saw, maybe they couldn't speak up about it. Maybe they're just so desperate for results that they just pick him anyway. But here comes somebody who appears to be quite principled and has the backing of the board, so he's trying to do things the right way. So I don't think it's that common overall. I think at times, we've all seen players who fall out with managers and so on. But again, the power struggle is one whereby, who is in charge? The manager can have his say. But if the team's struggling sometimes, I've been with players, for example, when a team's struggling, who says to a manager, listen, I'll be here longer than you will. And it sounds really arrogant, really petty, but it ends up being that way. And at that point, you sort of question, who's in charge here? Because some players have leverage sometimes the manager has leverage. But in this instance, it seems like Amorim has the leverage. And as a consequence, he's using it. He's using it to create a lesson, to create a culture, to create standards whereby the players all have to buy into. And because it's Rashford, because it's the guy from the academy, because it's the face associated with the club over the last few years, I think that will trickle down to all these other players as well. And to be honest as well, one other example. This, in some ways, kind of reminds me of a few years ago when there was the Tevez-Mancini thing, where Mancini said Tevez didn't want to play in the game, he refused to play. But Tevez said, that was never the case. And now here's the standoff. And in the end, Mancini was the guy that was in charge. So off Tevez went. But I think for many people who were there at the time, the story was far more complicated than, say, Mancini was making out. But because he had the power, he set the narrative and off Tevez went. And before you know it, he was back in Argentina.
I said that to your manager once. I'll be here after you.
Did you?
I was right.
How arrogant.
Well, it wasn't arrogant because it got very nasty.
Wow.
And as Nedum said, it was very complex.
Right, I see.
And it wasn't just me. But so these things, it wasn't just me within that squad who had a bad relationship with the particular manager. So it does happen, and it can, and it festers amongst the rest of the players.
That's the issue, I imagine.
Because you're in the dressing room every day, and players are talking about it, the managers having to deal with it. Shouldn't we be talking about Man United? Because a great win yesterday.
We can most definitely talk about Manchester United, but unfortunately I want kind of a negative spin on it.
That was a kind of tongue-in-cheek great win because it was, it was a great win. It was a
You look at it, Rasmus Højlund, nothing, Xerxes, there's nothing.
They got nothing.
There's nothing to get excited about in that final
Do you know what the best result, apart from their result, that they had yesterday, was that was one of Fulham's much poorer days at the office.
Yeah.
Because Fulham, this season, have been a big threat going forward to every team. They were a threat at the Etihad, could have won. They beat Chelsea away. They've given Arsenal tough games, gone toe-to-toe.
So you look at the stats here for the Højlund, how much is it his fault, how is it a lack of supply?
I don't think, listen. He was as raw as hell when they brought him in from, was it Atalanta, I think he came in from in Italy. He works hard, he's got a great attitude, talking about attitude. He'll fight and he'll scrap. And he'll learn and he'll get better, but I think he's limited.
Right.
I think he's limited. And when we talk about Manchester United...
Limited is a word you could use for a lot of those players.
Yeah, obviously, but when we're talking about their aspirations, you're looking at elite number 9s that club's always looked for. The kind of thing that Man City are looking for now, the kind of thing that Arsenal are out there hoping they can get, the kind of thing Liverpool have always tried to get, although they haven't really got an out-and-out number 9 at the moment. United have always had quality, whether it be Rooney, Van Persie, Cantona, Mark Hughes, the list just goes on. And ultimately, I think this lad, for me, is a good squad player at this club. Maybe he's a good player at an Everton or a West Ham or somebody like that. I think at Man United, where they're aspiring to get back to, then he's not going to be the answer. And obviously, Joshua Zirkzee is not the answer either.
Yeah, that's it as well. You've got Højlund or Zirkzee. You're very limited when it comes to that number 9 position, Mario.
Yeah, because what Craig just said. You know what the thing is? Well, when I watch Højlund and I watched him in, against City, and I think I had a better perspective of him and understanding how he works hard, just like Craig. He's a hard-working guy. He doesn't give up, does all this. But you have to understand that when you play in the England Premier League and you come from the outside, you quickly figure out that everybody works hard. So you're not exceptional anymore by working hard. Now you have to bring something else. And the other things that he had to bring is that the things is what we're waiting for. Are you gonna bring a certain skill that is needed? Do you have the pace to get away that far? No, he doesn't have the pace to get that far. So the only thing now you're relying on the players that they're gonna supply the goods to you. And that's the only answer he can get. Because as a striker, eventually you got to look at the goods that are they going to set me up? Are they going to make me feel? And if no one is doing that, it becomes a hard time for him, because Man United now is not the greatest Man United that we know. But if it becomes the greatest Man United, I don't know if they still want to hold on to a player that doesn't score enough goals for them.
Marcus Rashford's time at Manchester United could be coming to an end, with reports suggesting the club is open to letting him leave. After struggling for form and facing criticism over his commitment in training, Rashford has fallen out of favour. Under Ruben Amorim, the manager has been clear. Only players who give their maximum effort will have a place in his squad. Now, with clubs like Barcelona and PSG reportedly interested, Rashford could be set for a fresh start away from Old Trafford. But is this the right move for both United and the player? If Rashford leaves, it would mark the end of an era for a player once seen as the future of the club. While his talent is undeniable, his inconsistency and attitude concerns have raised doubts about his long-term place at United. A move abroad could help him rediscover his best form. But will he thrive outside of Manchester? Fans remain divided. Some believe it's time for a change, while others think United could regret letting him go. What do you think? Should Rashford stay and fight for his place? Or is it time for a new chapter? Let us know in the comments.